Alright, we're going to try this again. Hopefully the audio is back. Please let me know if it's working. Great, thank you. It's a problem with this mic. It sounds nice when it works, but it's a little loose and I have to hold it just right. Hi Gary. Thank you. Welcome back. Hello, hello. Just gonna make a little adjustment here. I guess people who were saying the audio wasn't working were actually correct. It seemed like a weird way to troll me. Alright, let's get back into it. What were we talking about? How do you overcome when a good person hurts you? I assume you're talking about mentally or psychologically, not physically. Someone hurt you psychologically and you're trying to get over it. Well, nobody can really hurt you psychologically. You hurt yourself. You hurt yourself because you decided to get upset at some disappointment. Some expectation in you was ruined. So you kind of just look at that expectation. You're like, one way to think about it might be to rephrase that rather than saying X hurt me or somebody hurt me. The better way to think about it might be, why did I hurt myself over how this person behaved? It's essentially because you want something out of them. You have some expectation out of them. And that expectation is the problem. This goes back to it's good to be detached. If you want to be passionate or attached, pick one thing. Don't get attached to all kinds of random people and your expectations out of them. I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, this is the theory. Yeah, someone said this is Naval feeding his ego. That's correct. That's why I'm here. But why do we do anything? Someone asked thoughts on minimalism. Minimalism isn't the thing. There was a time period when if you wanted to be internally free, you had to be an ascetic. You had to renounce things. You had to, if you look in old Buddhist societies, they basically go out with a begging bowl. And they do that because at some level, to be happy, your reality has to exceed your expectations. So you just reduce your expectations down and you reduce what you need. But modern society, we're a lot richer. Even those of us who think we're poor aren't really that poor. We have iPhones, we have TVs, we have roofs over our heads. We still, take Uber Pool or, get on a bus or have a scooter or something. So, real poverty, if you're watching this broadcast, you're probably not in real poverty. So minimalism is no longer required. What's required is just that your expectations still have to be below your means. So, one of my better tweets, I think, is where I wrote that people who live far below their expectations enjoy a freedom that people who are busy upgrading their lifestyles can't fathom. And what I'm basically saying there is, don't keep upgrading your lifestyle every time you make more money. Try to live at least one solid notch below what you're earning. And then the little things won't bother you as much. And you can achieve a lot of the same peace of mind that people used to have to give up their entire lives and families for. How do you learn to not care about what other people think of you? This is a hard one, and this is where I'm screwing up right now. The way to forget the insults is to not take in the compliments in the first place. Because when someone insults you, for that insult to affect you, it has to hit in self-image that you have created, and that self-image was created through compliments, and through as a kind of a defense mechanism. So if you can avoid getting happy, and this is obviously hard, but if you can avoid being happy when somebody compliments you, then you won't be as insulted when they insult you. Also, for an insult to really affect you, it has to have some level of truth to it. If you're real thin and I call you fat, or if you're old and I call you're young and I call you old, it's not going to stick. So there has to be some small level of truth in it for it to affect you. So you have to think deep down, like, what did this person say that was true that I don't want to hear? Especially if an insult like really sticks with you for a while. Now, obviously, if someone's slandering you, that's different. Your reputation can be destroyed and so on. But I just mean sort of like if someone, for example, says that you're an angry person or an arrogant person, you get all worked up over it, there's probably some level of truth to it. Techniques for preventing copying others' desires. Yeah, this goes back to, we were talking about mimesis, which is a copying of other people's desires. This is where meditation and alone time has been really helpful to me. Also, just getting out of your peer group, because you copy things from your peer group. So retreats, vacations, trips, dropping yourself into completely new environments is really good. Because if you shift up your peer group very quickly, you'll notice how some of your desires no longer apply. Another way is just to kind of see how bundled your beliefs and desires are. If they line up very neatly with what everybody else around you, like your close friends, seem to want, then they're probably copied. That's true of both that's true of your beliefs, like your political beliefs, your economic beliefs, true of your desires, etc. What qualities do you look for in people when establishing a friendship? I mean, friendships, you don't want to be too rational and analytical about them, because we are talking about friendships, but I think integrity is a really big one. You want to be able to trust someone that you're investing a lot of your time into. And I think happiness is a big one. You don't want to be around unhappy people. They'll make you unhappy sooner or later, or you'll have to pull them up. And then for me, I like intellectually curious people, because they stay perpetually interesting. Do you have friendships with anybody who is not very smart? Honestly, it's rare. I do have friends who are not like, well, everyone's smart at something, so I don't want to be pejorative and say that they're not smart, but it's just, if they're not intellectually curious about things that I'm intellectually curious about, and if they're not constantly learning, eventually we'll just run out of stuff to talk about. And I like to talk, which is why I'm on Twitter and Periscope. What's the best thing that happened to you in the last year? I picked up a serious meditation practice. That was about 3.5-4 months ago, and that is the best thing that has happened to me in quite a while. Or that I've done. I don't know if I would say it happened to me. How can one get over a deep desire for financial security? I'm not well positioned to advise you there, because I myself did not get over it until I was financially secure, and even now I'm still not over it. So I don't think it's necessarily bad to have that desire. Just have a plan for working on it, and do things to chill out until you can get there. I'm not going to be the one to tell you to not go make money. I was obsessed with it for a long time. I did it. I continue to do it. And I think that everyone should have financial security. When do you think you will retire? That's a good question, because I am already retired. And to me, retirement just means not doing things you don't want to do. So the only things that I have to do that I don't want to do are basically taxes and government-related things. Other than that, I control my time. And I don't sacrifice today for an imagined tomorrow. And so if you can get into a job that you like, where you are tracked in your outputs rather than your inputs, you'll be able to control your time much better. And once you can control your time, you can allocate your time such that you're not wasting it, and you can live most of your days, not 100%, but most of your days as to what you want to do, and then you're essentially retired. Thoughts on Harari's new book. Harari wrote *Sapiens*, which is one of my favorite books the last few years, and I recommended it to everybody. It gave me some fundamental shifts in worldview. And then he's written 2 books subsequently, which unfortunately are not as good. I still think he's a very intelligent person, but he's suffering from the same issue that I'm suffering from right now, which is once you spend your entire life coming up with a set of insights that are important to you, and then you say them once, and you've said them, and then the world wants you to come up with equally good insights, but now instead of doing it over 30 or 40 years, you have to do it in 1 or 2 years. And if you actually succumb to that desire, you'll start churning out a lot of crap. Pardon my French. So an example is the Matrix trilogy, right? The Wachowski brothers, now sisters, made this incredible movie. And they probably spent a decade thinking about it. It was probably something they even played about or fantasized about in their childhood. And then within 2 years, they had to crank out 2 more movies, and they just weren't very good. So it's a sequel problem. The money is in sequels, but the quality is not in sequels. It's very rare to have somebody who can follow up and do something great. And if you look at artists, for example, like Madonna or U2 or Paul Simon, who have made comebacks and had multiple hit albums, usually they'll reinvent themselves in the process. They'll have to go back down to the beginning and start over before they create their next piece. And very often the fans from the previous album won't be fans of the new album. So you basically have to give up and go back to beginner's mind. And I'm actually kind of in that situation right now, where even though I'm still very interested in crypto, I feel like it's gone more mainstream. So I got to find my next act. Would I go back to being an entrepreneur? Not in the classic sense. Being an entrepreneur is a young person's game. It's like playing football or boxing. It takes a lot out of you. Also, I don't think I'm a very good entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs have to build businesses and manage people and those kinds of things, and I'm more of a thinker and an investor. I wish I was a better entrepreneur. Next act, psychedelic mushrooms. A lot of people are asking about psychedelics. You should do your own homework, and you should make up your own mind. But I would say that psychedelics are the fast route. Everything people get out of psychedelics, you can also get out of meditation, which is a slow route. But it's nice when it's under your control. The main thing I did after making money was I seized control of more of my time. Anytime you can trade money for time, you should. Because time is the thing you will run out of first. How do you meditate? I mentioned this before, but I'll repeat it and I'll try to be more succinct. 1 hour a day. Every morning, get comfortable, back straight, but you can lean against something a little bit, lower back. Close your eyes and just accept whatever happens, and just commit to doing 1 hour a day for 60 days. See how it goes. Keep your expectations low. Is Silicon Valley falling behind? No, Silicon Valley still has a massive network effect, but boy, they're the local government and people are definitely taking advantage of it. People in Silicon Valley are testing how strong the network effect here is actually is. Just scrolling through some of the questions here. Transcendental meditation. It's not that popular in India. It's not that popular amongst old school meditators, and I think there are good reasons for that. It's sort of white noise for your brain. You're chanting a mantra over and over, trying to drown out your thoughts. I think it's good for beginners. I would move past it after a while. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. And the thing about meditation is whatever works for you is the right answer. What could be the next Black Swan event, in your opinion? Nobody knows what the next Black Swan is. That's why they call Black Swans, right? That said, the obvious candidates to me are this giant money printing experiment that's been going on globally since 2008. How will that end? Has to end eventually. How do you secure yourself in a financial black swan? Yeah, Bitcoin. I mean, that's one of the promises of Bitcoin. If it's an inflationary collapse, if it's deflationary, which I think is less likely, then the answer would be different. Then it would just be U.S. dollars, cash. Were you always good at public speaking? No. Public speaking is really about confidence, which goes back to indifference. If you're indifferent to what people think, you can be confident. And if you're confident, you can speak well. I hate to oversimplify it, but I think that's most of it. What do you think about Principles by Ray Dalio? There's some great ideas in there, but boy, I would just hate to work at that place. It sounds really tiring. How do you motivate yourself to do anything if you're indifferent to the outcome? You have to do something. Why do birds fly? You're not going to just sit there like a vegetable. Are you insecure? Interestingly enough, not really. Maybe a little bit physically. I'm not the tallest or healthiest or best looking person, and yeah, my hairline's receding. Getting older like everybody else, one day at a time. So on that stuff, obviously it's not ideal, but I wouldn't say I'm insecure. Insecure would imply that I have some hole that I'm trying to fill and not accepting it. I accept it. People keep asking about global warming. I hate wandering into political issues. Global warming is no longer a scientific discussion; it's a politicized discussion. Everybody has their mind made up, and if and it basically just turns into a name calling, and that's unfortunate because science is about open discussions. Science is about the freedom to speak whatever you want. If someone starts advocating flat Earth, I'm not going to call them a round Earth denier. I'm not going to shut them up. I'll just argue with them. I think we have to stay. We have to be able to discuss everything. So to me, freedom of speech, which is really freedom of thought, is the highest virtue. And I don't like to see any kind of debate shut down. I do agree with Nassim Taleb on the precautionary principle, which is when you're talking about single systems that if they fail catastrophically, you shouldn't mess with them. At the same time, I think we've done a lot of damage globally by focusing on global environmentalism over local environmentalism. When you go and talk to people in India or China who are on the poverty line and you start telling them about, well, you guys are producing too much carbon, it's not conducive to their helping you out. I think we would do better if we cleaned up the rivers and the forests and tackled local environmental problems and then created environmentalists out of everybody, and then they'll solve the global problem. But the global coordination problem is impossibly hard, and I think it's just turned into a highly politicized topic, which is just impossible to have a rational discussion about. I want to see physicists tackle global warming. I do get suspicious anytime anyone's identity is wrapped up in something. So, for the same reason that you have to be a little skeptical about macroeconomists on whether we can even predict how the economy is going to go because their whole identity is wrapped up in it. I'd rather listen to a physicist than to a so-called climate scientist. And don't take that out of context and crucify me on Twitter. What is the future of identity, digital identity specifically? It's a good question. Physical privacy is almost dead. There are cameras everywhere, and the face recognition systems have gotten extremely good. I got a demonstration recently of a face rec company that's at over 98% accuracy. It picked up everybody in my social circle, under poor lighting, side shots, everything. So physical privacy is dead. There are so many cameras everywhere, and they can pick out any data that they want, and they can identify anybody. The only remaining privacy we're going to have is digital privacy, which is why encryption is so important, and which is why even though I don't have one, despite what everybody thinks, I wish I did, I still defend anonymous accounts. I think anonymous accounts are the most important accounts on Twitter. If I had to do it over again, I would have just started on Twitter with an anonymous account. But then, of course, I couldn't be periscoping with all of you here today. Thoughts on Skin in the Game? I think it's an amazing book. Everybody should read it. I've read it twice now. Is true decentralization possible? I think so. I think it's a battle, though. People always try to centralize, and people will try to decentralize. It'll be like a back and forth. Blockchains are the best answer we've seen for decentralization in a long time.